Most people imagine Native American food as something simple and familiar. Corn roasting over a fire, bison on the plains, salmon pulled fresh from a river. Clean, natural, predictable. But the truth is far more layered, far more intense, and in some cases, far more shocking than the version found in schoolbooks or history documentaries. Across a continent full of extremes, Native peoples developed diets that reflected survival, spirituality, and the immense diversity of North America. And today we are stepping into that world to uncover what they truly ate. As you listen, ask yourself, would you have eaten these things if you had lived then? The story begins with a surprising truth. Some traditions that sound unbelievable today were completely normal centuries ago. Take the Karankawa of the Texas coast, for example. These towering, muscular warriors believed that consuming a tiny piece of flesh from a defeated enemy allowed them to absorb that person's courage and strength. It was not about hunger. It was not cruelty. It was symbolism, a deep spiritual exchange rooted in their worldview where power could be transferred physically. A similar idea appeared during certain Iroquois war rituals, where consuming a very small portion of an enemy's flesh was used as a psychological weapon as much as a spiritual act. It was rare, it was ceremonial, and it certainly was not everyday food, but it was real. Now think about this. If you believed that taking a single bite meant surviving the next battle, would you be able to do it? Food was not just about sustenance, it was about meaning. And that brings us to another surprising practice. Among several plains tribes, such as the Lakota, the Cheyenne, and the arikara, dogs were respected companions, guards, and hunting partners. Yet in moments of ceremony, or when visiting leaders arrived, dog meat was served as a gesture of deep respect. To outsiders today, that might feel shocking, but to them, it was an honorable dish reserved for important occasions. Imagine being a warrior returning from a long hunt, or a guest traveling miles across dangerous lands, and being offered this meal as a sign of gratitude. Would you be able to accept it without hesitation? Shift your mind further north to the Arctic coast, where the Inuit and Yupik carved out a living in places where winter swallowed the earth for months at a time. Fresh food was rare, and preserving nutrients became an art. One of their most notorious traditions was fermenting fish or fish heads until they became soft, pungent, and incredibly strong-smelling. These dishes, known by names like stinkfish and stinkheads, were buried in pits or stored in sealed containers for weeks or months until they reached the perfect stage of fermentation. To many visitors, the smell was overwhelming, but to the people who depended on them, these foods were life-sustaining treasures. Now ask yourself, in a frozen world with no crops and few animals, would you be brave enough to take a bite of something that smelled like pure decay? But it wasn't only the Arctic where unusual foods appeared. Across California, the Chumash collected large oak moth caterpillars, roasting them until they were crispy and full of rich, nutty flavor. The Apache gathered Mormon crickets, grasshoppers, and plump larvae. Hopi families harvested river-dwelling worms, drying them as delicacies to trade or store. These insects were packed with protein and fat, offering nutrients that were hard to find in certain regions. We often think of insects as something only eaten in emergencies, but to many tribes, they were considered a normal part of the diet, sometimes even a treat. So ask yourself honestly, could you sit around a warm fire, pass a bowl of roasted caterpillars, and pop one into your mouth without blinking? On the high plateau and in desert regions, Pueblo peoples developed practical methods of extracting nutrients from materials most people would overlook. They sometimes burned old animal bones until the hard marrow turned into a black, brittle material. That ash was mixed with water to create a calcium-rich drink, or it was added to foods for strength. Meanwhile, plains hunters consumed every part of the bison, including eyes, dunganicles such as the stomach lining, and even the partially digested grasses found inside its stomach, which were rich in vitamins during harsh winters. If you had just brought down a 900-kilogram animal in freezing weather, would you waste any part of it? Or would you take a bite of something you would never even consider today? Blood also played a major role in many diets. Lakota cooks made rich blood soups and dried mixtures of meat, fat, and clotted blood known as wasna, a powerful trail food carried by warriors. Navajo families sometimes drank fresh clotted sheep or goat blood right after slaughtering an animal, believing it strengthened the body. These practices might shock modern audiences, but to them it was simply using what nature offered. Picture yourself holding a warm bowl of fresh blood in a world without refrigeration. Would you drink it, knowing it might be your only iron-rich food for weeks? In the forests of the Northeast, Iroquois hunters prized the heart of a bear, a creature they considered spiritually powerful. Eating the heart wasn't just nourishment, it was a ritual of respect. In California, families spent hours leaching bitter, toxic acorns in streams or sand pits to wash out the dangerous acids. Without this process, acorns are almost inedible. Yet for thousands of years, they were the foundation of the Californian diet. Stop for a moment and think about the dedication required to gather, crack, grind, wash, and cook something that starts out poisonous. Would you put in the same effort if it meant feeding your family? Survival, spirituality, and creativity shaped every bite people ate. A continent filled with deserts, tundra, forests, and plains demanded resourcefulness. These foods may seem strange today, even shocking, but each dish tells a story of people adjusting to the land, honoring their traditions, and using every part of the natural world. Nothing was wasted. Everything had meaning, and every meal was a quiet lesson in resilience. So as you hear these stories, fermented fish buried beneath the ice, insects roasted on glowing coals, bones burned into ash, hearts eaten in ceremony, blood drunk for strength, and enemies consumed symbolically for power. Ask yourself again, which of these foods could you face? Which would you refuse? Which might you surprisingly accept if you were raised in that world? Because the truth is that food carries culture, it carries identity, it carries survival. And to understand what Native Americans truly ate, you have to step beyond the modern idea of what is normal and into a world where every bite had purpose, where scarcity demanded creativity, and where tradition shaped the menu as much as hunger ever did. This is not the sanitized version found in children's textbooks. This is the real, unfiltered story of Native American diets, a story of courage, ingenuity, and sometimes shocking choices that kept entire nations alive.